Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Jorgens from Endeavour Solutions and our subsidiary GP Support North. And actually along the bottom, you can actually see we also have Purely CRM and Express Info. So a large, wide family within Endeavour. Thank you for attending today. Our focus is on providing a deep dive on Vena Solutions. We will go into basic quick introductions on who is Vena, look at some of their cloud architecture, and then we're going to turn it over to Jason, who's going to provide a great commentary and demo of some of these cool functions. We'll finish up the wrap-up, and we'll be good. We will not be sharing a copy of today's presentation, but we will be sharing a recording. So feel free to sit back and pay attention. And I'm hoping to keep this quick, rapid fire, and really talking to you, the audience. Everyone who's here today is on Dynamics GP or using Business Central. Thank you for your business. This is extended out to current clients, though some may be watching a recording in the future. And of course, we look forward to earning your business. Let me jump into why Endeavour likes Vena and why our clients love it. It really provides the basis for true business transformation, mostly for larger clients or for small, mid-sized clients that want to behave and have the maturity of larger clients. We do have some that are using smaller teams and are hitting way above their weight class and are behaving and having the throughput of 10 and 20 person teams when they themselves are only a 5-person team. So you really can look at Vena as an investment for business transformation. For those that are larger organizations, this is the premium product that really will help you have the flexibility and meet all of your complex needs within your budgeting processes, scenario planning, and as I have here, all the advanced workflow to follow along the bouncing ball and get rid of the multiple disparate emails, chasing people, and full-time resources, just managing your FP&A process. A lot of efficiencies for financial close, and Jason will get into that, how that happens. I know we had one GP client, and they went from 10 to 12 days for their financial close down to 2 days. They had a lot of manual processes because they were extracting outside of Dynamics GP, manipulating in Excel sheets, consolidating data from multiple systems, and they were having a lot of challenges come along to Vena, and it really made their lives a lot easier. For those that are on Business Central or on Dynamics GP, Vena works with both, and Vena actually has an out-of-the-box connector for Business Central. And again, those that are on Business Central, you've moved to Business Central in the last 2, 3, 5 years. And now is a great time to improve and move in terms of a maturity model to additional automations. We do love the integrations with Microsoft, as I mentioned, and then the AI that's built into Vena, the integrations, the security, their cloud-based cubes, hosted in Azure in Canada or in the US, everything all together checks all the boxes. What I want to do is pass it over to TJ. TJ's a great advocate of ours and been working with us for a number of years in support of our clients. TJ, you took over the screen perfectly. You're a rock star. On to your next slide, and then I'll let you introduce Jason.
Amazing. Thanks, Scott. So with this one, and actually just before I get going into that, so I've been at Vena for about 4 years now, just working with Endeavour very closely. Scott and the team have been great to work with. I'm sure all of you know that as well. And yeah, just wanted to really with this slide show you a few of the use cases that are available to our clients within the Vena platform. You have your standard, budgeting and forecasting, as you can see right now, all the way to cash flow, revenue planning, financial close processes like Scott had mentioned previously, and much more as well. The good thing with Vena is obviously Excel is our front end. So we're really building on the environment that you're currently operating within. So if you are leveraging Excel for your traditional FP&A processes today, we can always bring those models that you've already built out into Vena. So you're not losing kind of the work that you're comfortable with. You're really just enhancing what you're able to do with that as well. So you won't lose any of that progress. So just moving into that next slide now, showing Vena at a glance. Really, this is demonstrative of the significant growth that we've gone over the past couple of years. We just hit over 100 million in revenue in Q4 of last year. A lot of recognition from within the industry, a lot of continued innovation as well, largely due to our relationship and partnership with Microsoft. So as you can see in the bottom right there, that includes Vena Copilot, which is a cool tool that merges financial reports, being able to have that kind of analyst in your pocket, PowerPoint integrations. I know we have Teams on the way as well. And it's all built on the Azure environment, so integrations across that entire Microsoft stack, including, of course, GP and Business Central. So if we jump into the next slide here as well, just really wanted to provide a more technical look at this in terms of the Vena KubeFlex, which is, of course, like I mentioned, hosted on the cloud in Azure. And the idea really here is, like I was saying, we want to be able to add to your daily workflow, really integrating across those same tools that you're currently using every day, staying within that familiar environment, which really helps with platform adoption as well for your team. Ultimately, Vena is a value add across your daily functions rather than you changing everything to then work within the platform of Vena. And then if we jump into the next slide, this one really shows a few different case studies from some of our clients as well across different industries. At the end of the day, proof is in the pudding. Just before Jason gives you a showcase of some of those deep dive functions, this is really just highlighting the real-time benefits and efficiencies we've helped drive with our customers as well.
Great. I'm just going to jump back to this one. With the multiple source systems and the Vena KubeFlex, what really resonates with our GP clients, the ones that have not moved to Business Central, is that you can have GP data, and in the future you can have Business Central data and still keep your GP data separate. And then Jason's going to be talking about some of those consolidations. Those already on Business Central or on GP, you can bring in multiple systems. So we can bring in CRM data, we can bring in manufacturing data, whatever data you want, you can bring in. So it does count sort of towards a cloud-based data warehouse, data mart. Not for those purposes, but outside of financial planning, all of that is still fair game. It just comes down to the scope and discussions that you have with our team and with Vena. So Jason, why don't you introduce yourself and take over the screen sharing?
Sure. Hey, thanks for that, Scott and TJ. Now, my name is Jason Chen, and I'm a solutions consultant here at Vena. Essentially, my role is to demonstrate the value of the platform. Really quickly about my experience, have about 5 years of technology implementation experience, 2 with KPMG, and then 3 as a lead consultant here at Vena, implementing with dozens of different clients, hundreds of different processes and solutions. So today in our presentation, we're going to be walking through Vena, but I'm breaking this into actually 2 different distinct demonstrations. The first demonstration, we're going to take a look at all of our consolidation tools that we can help you bring in those multiple different source systems, multiple different charts of accounts, or alternatively, upload a CSV file from your Greater Plains, get it into a system so that we can start doing some interesting things such as reporting, analytics, as well as budgeting. All right, let's jump right into it. Oh, actually, sorry, I didn't go through the second part. The second part, we're going to be going through seeing Vena as a budgeting software. That's really our bread and butter, how the majority of our clients will use us. And we'll go through some interesting things of an operating expense input, our integration in towards visualizations, and as well as some new AI features that have been recently launched. Okay, now to get right into it. Now, Vena is a web-based platform. We're going to be logging in as myself, a solutions consultant here. We are compatible across Mac, PC, mobile, tablet, and we can set up single sign-on if that's more convenient. Now, when we log in today, I'm going to navigate us over to our contributor panel. This is where we are going to see the list of reports that have been assigned to me, as well as the list of tasks. Now, sorry, here again, folks, I just logged into the wrong environment. This is the one we want over here, Cooper Group. Now, Cooper Group essentially is a consolidation of a number of various different entities. And this panel here is showing me the list of activities that I may have to do within that consolidation process. Things like eliminations, topside entries, maybe adjusting the CTA. But first, we're actually going to quickly navigate over to some Excel-based reports. Now, just showing here, we can do reports in all sorts of different manners, whether it's financial statements by entities, some with disclosure, or maybe we want to see how the consolidation is being built up through all those various activities. Today, we're going to take a look at the financial statements by entity, just showing entity by entity, closing of a month. Now, as you can see here, we're just launching an Excel file onto from my desktop, opening up. And as this is loading up, you'll notice that there's actually no data tied into this template. That's because all of the data is going to be securely stored on that KubeFlex database that Scott was referring to. And the way we interact with that data is using this choose box here. So here we can select whatever level of entity we want to be reporting on. Opening this up, we can see that we've got our US entity, our Canada entity, as well as a newly acquired entity, Vault, where we will be uploading in some trial balance details. We also have a European subsidiary that also has some subsidiaries. Let's open up to the Cooper Group for the year 2025 in our USD currency. Here, we'll load in those details from the cloud. And as you can see, this is just Excel, but it's dynamically outputting the structure of the P&L, as well as showing the various different entities up at the top. Now here we've got a very standard income statement as well as balance sheet, just quickly showing you those views. From the income statement side, we are capturing details such as ownership percentage, controlling interest, minority interest, as well as giving a view again across that P&L. But here within Vena, we've got this 365 Connect, which is going to give us some double clicking abilities, some drill down capabilities. So taking a look at our Cooper Group revenue here, we can actually drill down on this value, essentially double click, uncover all of the inputs or values that have been made into the system. At this level, we can clearly see departmental values, maybe more granular information, maybe put together a pivot table. The point here is that we can double click on any number within Vena and pull out those values. But beyond just double clicking to this higher level summarized value, we can actually go one step further. So we are going to be integrating with your ERP and other systems, and that's going to allow us to bring in transactional level details. So here I can take a look at general operating expense. Instead of drilling down, I'm going to drill to transaction. This essentially is going to double click down to that transactional level, that invoice level, where we can see invoice level details. We can, again, pull these directly from our ERP and have us sift through, do some additional analysis. This is going to come up again in budgeting as we go through some budgets. Now, coming back over here above, we've got Vault. It's a newly acquired entity, and here we've actually established some ownership percentages and controlling interests. Now, what's also interesting about Vena is that we have an ability to double click on our user inputs. So this is an assumption that we've entered into the system. And here, leveraging our drill saves functionality, we can actually take a look and answer the who, what, where, when. So this was today by me, a solutions consultant. But what I really want to show everyone is that we can download the details. This is another template as part of this solution. And here we can even get to a snapshot of it right from that report. And within this template, we're establishing those things such as the ownership details, how we want to consolidate this Vault. Additionally, if we need to establish eliminations, counterparties, the relationships between our entities, we can do so. Additionally, we can also set up dedicated accounts, have Vena perform that consolidation, the elimination based off of those dedicated accounts, or alternatively a subledger manual method. Glossing over this quickly, this isn't the point of today's presentation, but I do want to show this chart of accounts. Now, many of our clients are using us again for a consolidation solution across different source systems. The assumption here is that those source systems might hold data that has different charts of accounts. So here we're using Vena to establish a standardized set of standard or consolidated account. Here we are mapping our Vault accounts back to a consolidated view. This could be the master chart of accounts. It could be a genericized chart of accounts. But the point here is we're using Vena to transform our data to produce those consolidated statements. Now, here what we're going to do is actually upload some data into Vena so that when we come back over to these financial statements, we can see our results, our revenues, our income, our cost of goods sold for Vault. So just bear with me while I pull up a CSV file just to share with everybody. But this is essentially what we will be uploading into the system. This could be a CSV generated from GP. It could be your transactional level data from other source systems as well. This is really the simplest form of data that we can really show for this type of effort, but just showing that, again, we can bring in entity level data for GLs if we have departmental concepts, customer concepts, vendor details. Those can also be brought into the system as well. So here we'll go back into the Vena system and we'll navigate over to our modeler. And here we can actually use our ETL templates to simply upload some data. Now we'll navigate over to this Cooper group, and I've got a channel here where I can simply select that CSV file off of my desktop and upload it in. This, of course, can be a formal or native integration. I'll show you some of those integrations in just a moment, but we are source system agnostic, which means that at the end of the day, if there's some file that we need to pick up, we'll set up some sort of file transfer protocol, whether it's our API, whether it is our direct connector, or it's a batch script that we're running to automate the load. Now we're going to let this run for a couple of minutes, but I will take the time to briefly talk about those connections that we've been referring to. Here we've got a list of direct connectors: Business Central, Intact, NetSuite. For Business Central, this will take you to some credentials. You can log in with your Microsoft account. For NetSuite, we might enter in your login, your consumer key, access tokens. Same thing for QuickBooks and Salesforce. Essentially, what we'll do is configure this, and your data will just show up in Vena after that synchronization. Now, when the data comes into the Vena platform, we'll put it into this KubeFlex data model. And this is entirely customizable, but most of our clients will have an account, entity, and department dimension. For the account dimension, we're going to be able to flexibly manage your charts of accounts. So your data is going to come in at the 4,000, the GL level, but any of these hierarchies, charts of accounts, can be informed from your system or manually managed. Right-clicking allows me to build in new levels. Dragging and dropping allows me to reorganize. Now, this concept applies also to other dimensions such as entity, where here we can build essentially our entity structure. If we acquire new entities, we can drag and drop those concepts into the consolidation and build that up. Now, let me just quickly check on this job. Oh, it looks like there was an error here. I've actually never seen that before. Oh, I loaded the charts of accounts. Apologies, folks. Just give me a second. Let me redo that.
So again, just to reiterate, those that are on Dynamics GP, if they move to Business Central or another ERP in the future, 9 times out of 10, they're typically changing their chart of accounts, which is why we want to have historical information on at one company of the chart of accounts, and then the new chart of accounts and dimensions for the go-forward strategy. So that's one of the the deeper dives we want to be covering off today, and you hit it perfectly on the nail. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Scott. And one story that I can tell is I worked with a client personally. They were Poppy Soda. Now, when I worked with them, they were a grassroots marketing company, or had grassroots marketing, very small. But quickly they, in my time working with them, had a Super Bowl commercial, and recently they were just bought by Pepsi, I believe. And so they quickly outgrew their source system. But we had used our Vena implementation as a guidance for their switch from QuickBooks over to NetSuite. Essentially, the goal of a Vena project should be to simplify your data into exactly what you need. And from that, we can actually inform what your next ERP, how your next ERP implementation can go, how it's structured, how it's designed. And so definitely relatable on that. Now here we've loaded in that new entity. We can simply just come back over to this and just refresh the data. This will essentially load in those details that we uploaded into the system. It's organized to the new master chart of accounts. If we want to take a look at a subsidiary view with those the original chart of accounts, we absolutely can. But here we're just demonstrating again that here we can drill down onto this level, take a look at all of the inputs that are made into the system for each account, each entity, etc. Of course, we'll do this from a balance sheet perspective as well. All right, so just wanted to take this first part of the demo to talk through the consolidations, how Vena can be used to not only report on your, create the reports that you need from a consolidation perspective, but also manage all of those different activities, whether it is the charts of accounts, whether it is eliminations, or some other activities such as the currency translation, topside adjustments, some other things that we haven't gotten to today. Now, again, we'll switch to that other part of the demo, but if there are any questions about consolidations or you do want to see a full demonstration, please reach out. We would be more than happy to double click and dig in on some of these details.
Thanks for that,
Okay.
Jason. And some of those additional demonstrations that I've seen in the past and with clients, you get into all the HR and payroll modeling. You get into distribution, even some manufacturing. There's a lot of non-core finance functions that Vena handles for a variety of different clients and scenarios and across multiple industries. You even have templates that are industry based and maybe touch upon those just as you keep going on with your train of thought.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. So we'll see a number of those examples here as we log in today as Frank Jones. Now, I want you to think of Frank as a finance manager, someone who essentially needs to complete an operating expense task. And I see that I do see a question from Mohammed as I'm looking at the chat. Can Vena be a replacement for a management reporter? Not sure if that's a technology, but definitely we can do.
That's a GP reporting tool. It's competing with free. Vena is way more expensive than free. And you're getting a lot more. So Management Reporter does not do budgeting. So all the budgeting workflow is going to be above and beyond. Management Reporter is also, to some extent, a reporting tool. It just grabs data and reports on it. Vena is model-driven. So you're building your financial statements from the bottom up, and that's how you get the financial close happening that much faster because it's already created. Similar to those clients that are using Jet Reports, Vena is taking you to a much higher level because it's not just reporting, it's the model-driven. And when we get into model-driven, we allow for scenario planning, for what-if analysis, for the automation of the close as Jason's is coming into.
All right, so exactly to your point, Scott, we can use Vena for a number of different activities, whether it's from accounting perspective for consolidations or financial close, or its number of industry solutions, as Scott was referring to. Now, we've got processes, standard templates, thought leadership across a number of these industries that you're seeing here, whether it's retail banking, insurance, not-for-profit, pro sports. We have a number of professional sports teams that are using us for not only box office reporting, but also financial budgeting and analysis. Now, here today, we're going to be focusing in on actually FP&A and really our 2024 annual plan. And where I'm taking everyone right now is our workflow designer. This is where you're going to be able to establish your process from beginning to end and all of the activities in between. And here we can use these blocks to capture things such as our top-down target setting or assumptions, feeding into our base expense planning or balance sheet planning or other activities across the P&L, and finally distributing reports before and after the process. Now, all of these workflows can be done from a status tracking perspective as well. Here we can see what has been started, what is work in progress, what has been approved from a calendar perspective as well as control each task. This engine can also be used to send out email notifications. And so we can use Vena as a way to manage those activities. So instead of emails going through or SharePoint links, again, all of this is going to be managed centrally with a high visibility. Now, from past the workflow, past the status tracking, now let's take a look at Vena from an end user perspective. So this is the list of tasks that Frank sees when he's logged into the system. And they're ordered in terms of priority with the overdue items at the top, the ones in progress are on the horizon next, and finally some view-only reports. Now here we're going to be focusing in on expense planning, but do want to note that workforce planning is probably our most popular secondary source system to integrate other than the ERP. Here we're bringing in very detailed employee details to calculate things like payroll expenses, employee taxes, as well as any other concepts that can be derived from a roster or HRIS file. Now, again, we're going to be focusing on this expense planning template today. And launching this will open up a brand new Excel file on Frank's desktop. And again, there's no data into this template. It's all securely stored on the QFlex database. And so that means that Frank isn't going to be able to see the other entity's inputs. He's responsible for the New York entity. But here, he can use a single budgeting template across different departments. So standardizing the input, but each of these departments will have their own separate place to play. So sales is separate than services and marketing. And with our scenario dimension, this is where we can pivot our data. So we might start with a budget, move into a reforecast, and then stress test our assumptions across different what if or hypothetical scenarios. Now here, we'll just load in the budget, D10 sales. And here we're using Excel as a front end to both capture assumptions as well as model calculations. And this is a standard budget template. And within Vena, a blue cell is going to mean that we can key in or enter data. So that means that Frank can enter details for his advertising line item. And because it's Excel, I can just key values in. I can leverage the drag and drop functionality. I can even add in formulas as well as copy paste. Now, when users are ready to commit these details back into the database, we can use our Vena 365 connector to save the data. Now, this is saving the data back up to the cloud, back up into that QFlex database. But just to prove it, and a simple test I had from implementation would just be to delete it and to refresh it. But this is showing that these numbers are saved, as well as rolling up into any other subsequent reports and templates. Okay, outside of just direct input, what we also have is what we call line item details. I like to think of this as planning a level below the GL or at a description or placeholder level. So here users can key those placeholders in. Maybe it's promotions placeholder XYZ or even promotions ABC. And as I'm entering in these line item details, you might notice that the subtotal formula is created as well as it's automatically calculating, and even going one step further, if I try to key something in onto this cell, there's some fat finger protection. All right, so outside of just simple drivers, what we also have in our standard templates or direct input is drivers. So here, see, these are out of the box where we can plan based off of FTE. Maybe we're using an even split or seasonal split. Opening this up, we can really bring in any drivers into the system. So maybe we're planning as a percentage of revenue or driving it based off of headcount or other operational data that we're bringing into the system. Really, we're only going to get more granular and more efficient if we bring in those other data sources. Now, those can be keyed into the system, such as these blue cells, users entering in their seasonality, their telecom per employee, or we're integrating with other systems, such as your HRIS to bring in FTE or other metrics, such as an employee survey. These can be used to drive the calculations by department, again, getting more granular. Coming up back above, one of our most popular is definitely this year-over-year increase. And here, unlocking the ability to take a look at our historical data. Now, if I'm Frank and I'm looking at this 9272 number, I might be curious as to whether this is reoccurring or a one-time only expense. Now, if I don't have Vena, I might need to download a major extract, filter down to the specific year, period, scenario, count entity. But here in Vena, we can always double click on our numbers, go one step further. So here we'll drill to that transactional level, uncovering that invoice level detail, vendor information. Maybe there's a memo, maybe there's a note here that instructs Frank. The point is we're giving the ability to for Frank or our budget owners to access this level of information. This is one of our most popular features within the platform. Again, the ability to get down to this transactional level. From my time in implementation, I have seen individual FP&A professionals become heroes within the organization because they're able to provide this level of detail to their business unit leaders. Okay, coming back over here, one of the other major concepts that we love to show off within this demonstration is that this is just Excel. So here for our travel expense, we have linked this over to another tab, essentially this tab over here. And within this solution, users can leverage that line item detail functionality to insert a new row. Essentially, we're planning at that trip level, entering in the number of nights, the lodging details, having the Excel calculate this out and link this back. The point here is that we can take any of your existing modeling and just upload it. If you take a look at any cell within an Excel document, really it's an input and output or a calculation. With Vena, we just swap out the inputs and outputs, leave the calculations, make that connection to the cloud. And so some of my favorite implementations were essentially taking existing models, uploading them into the Vena system, swapping out the inputs and outputs, and then we've got your calculations, your way of planning, but again, integrated with your ERP and the ability to pivot, create different versions of your data. Okay, coming back over to that main input page, we've only got one input left to make. So let's assume that Frank has a number of promotions that he's running in December. Now, in this case, when I try to save the data, I'm going to be given a warning. That's because we've added some guardrails, some thresholds within this, so that if any of the accounts exceeded year-over-year threshold of 20%, we just want our users to make a comment. So here we will say promotions in December. Now, one of the best parts about Vena is that every single user input, every single activity is going to be tracked. So you're never going to need to dig through your file, take a look at a number, and not know where it came from. You're going to be able to analyze your user activities, see snapshots of their activity, and once this is finished saving, I'll demonstrate a couple of those functionalities.
Yeah, and that's a really great spot to highlight is the scratch pad and those extra tabs. Not only helps for individuals year over year, but if someone gets promoted or changes divisions, the next person to figure out, okay, what did they do last year? How did they calculate that? And finance has access to those source data so they can do the coaching and mentorship to the new line of business owners. Like this, the continuity from a business level of when you have that maturity within your organization of how you do budgeting, forecasting, the scenario planning is just amazing. And that's, really answers some of those questions. What's the difference between this and MR or Cosmos or a straight reporting tool? This is on the roadmap, a journey to true financial planning analysis. That's where the FP&A comes in.
Thank you for that, Scott. And as you can see here, we've saved the data, and now we can explore our audit trail. This is going to show all of the changes that this specific template has made back into your budgets. So here I can even pop out a brand new copy of it, and it's going to start to highlight all of the cells that have changed. It'll show me what it is now and what it was before. Again, the point here is that every cell, every click, every activity is going to be logged within the Vena system. Okay, coming out of this, let's close out of our budgeting input templates. Well, let's assume that Frank has essentially completed his budget, and we'll take the time to close out of some of these documents as well. And here we can take a look at some of the financial reports that are generated from these activities. We'll start with these financial statements, give you a quick view of the P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, as well as an interesting variance template that really shows off some Vena functionality. Okay, so previously, when we opened up that OPEX template, we weren't given an entity selection. That's because we had some guardrails within the process that essentially assigned that click or selection to Frank because he was responsible for the US entity. But just want to show that the New York entity is really rolling up into US and Canada as well as all entities. We've talked through how Vena can be a consolidation solution. But we can also have alternate roll-ups or alternate hierarchies, as we like to call them. So in this case, we can roll up New York from, as opposed to US and Canada, up to sales and distribution, up to the total structure. From my time in implementation, I've seen by legal, by tax, all sorts of different roll-ups. We can manage all of those different views within Vena to easily report on and plan by. Okay. So let's load in that consolidated structure for the income statement. Here we're showing 12 months of budget, 12 months of actuals. I've shown how we can double click on our actuals, get to that transactional level, but we also have some drill down capabilities on our budget details as well. So I'll navigate over to our general operating expense for December, drill down, and we'll take a look at all of the activity, all of the inputs that have been made into the system. Here, if we expand this out, it's just essentially Excel. We can use Excel's filtering to look at a single entity. If we wanted to create a pivot table, we could as well. But let's say I'm Frank's manager and I'm looking at this data and I see this 80K value. It seems a little bit high. If I don't have Vena, trying to understand this input, I might need to email someone, tap someone on the shoulder, maybe send a Teams message. But here we can leverage our drill saves functionality. This is going to answer the who, what, where, when. Today, Frank Jones, using the operating expense template, an 80K was saved. But here I can go one step further and download those details. So as Scott was referring to, here we've got a history of this budget input. We can see that this 80K is really explained by the promotions in December. But essentially all of Frank's activities, all of Frank's inputs are saved as a snapshot. So even if I'm on a final report, taking a look at all of my budget values or doing some variance calculations, I'm always going to be able to double click and answer the who, what, where, when, and what, and how in this case for my budget inputs. So again, the point here is that all of the user activities are saved. We're going to be able to trace back our data, whether it's an actual or a budget input within our base reports. Okay, moving on to the balance sheet here. Of course, we'll integrate with the balance sheet, bring it in at the level that we need to report on. Very similar concept with the cash flow, bring it in at the operating, investing, finance activities. This can be entirely customized. For our variance template, we're going to take a little bit of a pause here. Very standard view, monthly, quarterly, year-to-date view across the P&L. We can use some Excel groupings to summarize the data, maybe double-click into it. But if I ever want to switch between looking at my actuals versus my forecast, maybe I want to take a look at my budget, or maybe I just want to go to another month, all I need to do is update those selections and then refresh the data. The point here is that when we load in that new slice for July, the formulas will update, the conditional formatting will reapply. So this one variance template is really all of the variance templates you need for today, tomorrow, next year. With our choose box, we can load in any combination of entity and department so that we're looking at maybe a single entity or a single department or a single department with an entity. So again, this single report is all the variance reports that you need throughout your organization. Okie dokie. So final tab here is some visualizations. We do have a very strong PowerPoint integration where we can essentially bridge these into your decks, have them be live updated. So when you close your books, they're automatically updated. You know, I worked in management consulting for a number of years. Creating these charts, waterfall charts, it's a very time-consuming task. But recently, as a trend in the industry, we have really seen movement towards away from keeping Excel as a front end for capturing assumptions and modeling calculations. But anytime we are reporting or looking at data, we're starting to move towards these visualizations. So that's what we have here. This is Insights, which is Power BI embedded into the Vena platform. The advantage of this versus a separate Power BI license is that you don't need a separate admin, you don't need a separate permissions, security, you don't need separate integrations. All of this is directly synced with your Vena data model. And so just a quick walkthrough of these Power BI displays. Essentially what we will do is sync in your data. So not only bringing in at that Chicago level or Montreal level, but also any rollups or entity structures that we have as well. And these can be controlled, the selections within any of these displays. Same thing with your charts of accounts, your scenarios. But honestly, using these filters is kind of boring when the game-changing element of Power BI is the fact that we can interact with it. So here we're going to hover over our US location. It's going to generate some commentary as well as a breakout across the account group. But here, if I want to double click on that US location, take a look at the city level, I can make that selection. All of the KPIs, all of the graphs will update. From here, if I want to go one step further, go to the data level, that'll show me an individual line item variance, or I can actually get to my actuals. Similar to how we can download transactions using our Vena templates, we can also download transactions in this layer as well. Again, point here is we're going to be able to double click, filter down, get to whatever view we need, and finally be able to get to that granular invoice level information if we ever need it. Okay, just to move on, and we're going to walk through a couple of these tabs. Love to explore this revenue breakdown tree because even with PowerPoint, even with Excel, something like this is hard to reproduce. So here we're going to take a look at our base revenues, and I'm going to take a look at it from a country level first. I want to take a look at the revenue performance and profitability for my US location. Now, I want to go one step further, take a look at actually my New York product sales, see the revenue performance there, discuss it, perhaps I'm in a board meeting. Now, in that same board meeting, I get asked about my Canada location, specifically Toronto, and actually my professional services sales. Hopefully you can see how this type of dynamic output of your data just, again, isn't possible with Excel or PowerPoint, or at least not in this efficient manner. And even something as simple as this table can be selected to filter your data. Now, again, moving on here, we've got a profitability tab. I mentioned that I worked in management consulting. Creating these waterfall tabs month over month, quarter over quarter, even week over week is a very manual intensive task. Even with something like ThinkCell, you're still copy pasting your data. You're still updating these. You're still reformatting them. But with Power BI, close your books, load it into the Vena ecosystem, and these waterfall charts are created automatically with the latest and greatest. And additionally, if we want to slice and dice this across with our different filters or selections, we can do so as well. Now, the final tab we'll take a look at least within our insights layer, is our OpEx. Love to show this because this is actually running some analysis on your data. So it's trying to pick out the key influences to your operating expense accounts. Now it's highlighting salaries and wages. That's probably going to happen month over month. But down here below are sales departments of note. So right from that same tab, I can actually filter, take a look at my department sales at a top 5 account perspective. Let's filter down onto my sales department. And now I notice that my variance by account, this telecom subscription seems to be jumping out at me. Let's go one step further and drill through down to the data level and take a look at some individual variances done at the departmental level, entity level, and daily level. So here, again, we can organize those variances by their values, maybe export this for some additional analysis. But the point here is we're actually letting the tool guide us on where to look, maybe pull out some anomalies. Now, if any of you on the call have used Power BI before, this is just showing that this is just Power BI, but embedded into the Vena platform. Here, we've got the exact same suite of tools. For instance, if I want to change this from a line chart over to an area chart, I just need to update that selection. We can make this a clustered bar chart, or if we're so bold, we can do it pie chart as well. And you might have noticed these legends or x-axis and y-axis. It's really as simple as mapping an Excel chart, dragging the concept into the x-axis, the y-axis. The point here is that this is meant to be owned by finance, used by finance, and managed by finance as well. We do have users who have external Power BI, and we've got an amazing Power BI connector. But I have some clients who have external Power BI, but still use Vena Insights because, again, this is meant to be owned by finance, used by finance, and managed by finance as well.
Okay. And the templated approach is cutting the time to launch by a tenth and reducing that manual effort of building all these pretty dials and graphs takes a long time. And let alone the mapping and the data quality. So all the pieces coming together. And it really is, we never had this level of computing in the past to pull all the pieces together, and Excel can never handle it on its own. It's the cloud-based cube within Vena that surfaces everything where it's all refreshing by just, a separate drop down.
And on that note, Scott, when I talk to some users who have external Power BI, they tell me that the hardest part is the data part. That's actually all taken care of for you within the Vena database. We sync that data model into this environment, so it's just ready for you to start building reports and visualizations. Absolutely. Okay, final feature for today. Vena Copilot is definitely our newest feature, and this is essentially a large language learning model powered by OpenAI technology that's attached to your Vena data. And it's going to allow us to do a couple of different things, and we're going to go through different levels of this. The first level is a very simple query response. What is my revenue for 2023? This could be you coming into the system, pulling out some details, whether it's your actuals, whether it's your budgets. Instead of going to a Vena report or combing through your ERP, we can quickly get an answer. Now, this is the simplest level. Again, we can take it one step further. What are the top 5 departments in terms of operating expense variance, actuals to budget for May 2023? Now, in this case, we added a couple of things. We're getting very specific. We want for May 2023 operating expense departments, but we also wanted to perform some operations. We actually wanted to do that variance calculation and also do some ranking. So a couple points here. We can actually train this model to perform any type of operation, any type of step, similar to how we train ChatGPT with a prompt. And I like to think of this as an intern who's essentially read the entire internet, but they can apply those knowledges, those prompts, those learnings that you're teaching into the system and have it behave the way that you want. Now, the other thing here is we can have it do variance calculations. One common thing that we're hearing from our clients is that there is a budget owner who's always bugging the finance team about how much spend they have for a specific vendor for a specific month. Instead of coming to you, they can come to the Vena Copilot, pull out those answers with this query or response. Now here, we can also give the ability to download a report. This report will have the underlying details. It will essentially show a CSV with, again, very granular information. But the point here is that we are able to pull out actuals and budget for May 2023 at the department level. And I'll quickly show this query. But the only reason I show this is that there's actually a separation between your data and the large language learning model. This is what's produced by that AI model. And the point here is that there's a distinction and layer between your data and that AI model. And so this is what is produced. That AI model doesn't touch your data. It doesn't use that data to train itself or other models. So there's a very clear line in terms of security. Now, this type of report is, in all honesty, a little bit boring. It's just some underlying data. I'd love to close off the presentation by showing that we can generate a very cool ad hoc report within Vena. So here, I want this tool to generate me a revenue report by entity for 2023. Now we've introduced some agentic capabilities into this, and this is just the start, this report. We also are hard at work building some workflow, some budgeting and forecasting capabilities into that model as well. We will have a lot of this being demonstrated at our yearly conference in just a couple of weeks. But now that I've opened up this report, this is actually a Vena ad hoc report. It's got some interesting functionality, where here we've generated that revenue by entity for year 2023. We can take this and we can drill down on it, again, uncover all of those inputs. But many of you might have noticed that this is similar to a pivot table, or at least it's starting to look like a pivot table. And with my Vena 360 Connect, I can actually build a pivot table, but really on steroids, as I like to say. So here we're going to take our periods and we're going to drag them into the columns. And we can interact with all of our calendar months, quickly bringing that level in, coming back and refreshing the data. Now, I want to build this not from a revenue perspective, but also from a cost of good perspective. Here, we're giving you the full access to your charts of accounts. If you've ever tried to do this in a pivot table, the only way to do it is to add additional columns, add in sum if formulas, add in what if formulas to be able to essentially create this structure in the back end. But here within Vena, we can build it at whatever level we want, whether it's at that bottom GL level, or we're keeping it maybe at the gross margin and we'll say children of operating expense, essentially selecting all those groups below, come back over to it, and then refresh the data. Now I've got a P&L report by entity. Now, if I want to have this be a selection, sorry, let me back up. Here, if we keep department into the page, think of page like a filter within a pivot table. We actually are given a drop down, so I can go entity by, or in this case, department by department. Let's filter down onto my sales department. Now I've got a very dynamic report that I can quickly save onto my desktop, pass on, email to another user. They'll actually be given the opportunity to log in within the template. So this is a great way to share offline reports, but still connected to the Vena database. And hopefully you've seen how really you can flexibly create and pivot your data to create whatever report you need by mapping your data and concepts and dimensions across the rows, the columns, or a filter/page. And again, hopefully this also demonstrates how the Vena data model is structured. We essentially will take your data, bring it in, align it, and index it across the various different dimensions. We, of course, can add dimensions: vendor, customer, region, business unit, all sorts of concepts that I've worked with in the past. Those can all be brought into this as well. So you can flexibly report on and plan by anything that you're seeing here. All right. Just going to pause here, check the chat, see if there's any questions. Scott, not sure if you have any comments, but really that's what we wanted to walk you through today. Essentially our consolidation solution, our workflow engine, our budgeting input, as well as our reporting capabilities across Excel, across Power BI, and finally our Copilot.
Yep, I think that covered off everything I wanted you to touch on. That was absolutely fantastic.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Jason. Great job. Let's just take back over the screen to get into our wrap-up because we do have a few minutes left. So those that are watching a recording or those that have been a loyal client of ours for over 30 years, thank you for your business. We're now into our 36th year, and through some merger and acquisition activities, we're now over 1,100 active clients, offices across Canada as well as in San Antonio, Texas, and across the multiple lines of business. Endeavour and our focus as overall organization, especially Business Central, purely CRM with our CRM team and Power Apps and Power Platform, Dynamics GP Support North for all the Dynamics GP clients, and our friends Express Info, who have a combination of clients down in Texas. 3 lines of business: advisory, implementation, ongoing optimization, and support across the Microsoft platform. We're here to help you make your business better. Our clients live by our core values. You can read them up on the screen. And it really does make a difference because it changes and guides our tone in working with you, our tone online, even today's presentation. We're trying to add value and provide that deeper dive, provide that substance, and cut through a lot of the noise. So thank you, TJ. Thank you, Jason. That was absolutely fantastic. Call to action, reach out to our team. On the screen, I have Trish and Steve, but we also have a variety of other individuals, Paul and Jerry, James and Johnny. We have additional individuals joining our team as well as we continue to expand. Plus, you have the Endeavour support desk, and you can find us online. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.